Hello, Kiana Sage here with this month's April 2019 Being in Sync vibe. This month I wanted to talk to you about adaptive challenges. I'm going to start with a story. It's a real life story of a team that I've worked with over the years. Now this was an executive staff that I measure with my team influence. So I measure all my teams as far as how are they in relationship to a high performing team. And the reason why I do that is, number one, it's good to get the participation of the team members to get their honest assessments of where they think they are in relationship to what is considered a high performing team, right? So as we engage the team and they contribute and give their opinions, even if it's on a scale, they're participating. So it's important whenever you're going to do any type of development that you get participation, right? Just makes sense. So a team assessment is a way that I engage the team in a very open, honest, unconfrontational way. So I get this team assessment, but this particular team, the lead of the team wanted to do a trust assessment. So Patrick Lencioni is one of the big ones out there on trust. I figure, okay, I'll use his team assessment and we will see where the team comes out in trust, because they wanted to work on trust. Here I'm leading into adaptive challenges. So we have challenges that come up as leaders, and an example of challenges would be participation. Let's just start with participation. Let's just say we have an executive staff and not all members are active, participating, engaged, proactive. Let's just say, right? So that happens on teams. So participation and how we get them engaged, getting everybody engaged to talk, would say everybody in the room needs to say something. That would be a forced technical approach to address participation. So we have technical challenges and we have adaptive. The technical challenges, everybody in here in this room, we're going to do a round robin and everybody has to say something even if they agree to say nothing. So that would be a technical way to approach participation, which is very forced and usually you don't get very authentic engagement. The other thing that is going on within the teams is what's called adaptive challenges. And those are really at the core of a team's issue. So participation, maybe being authentic, would be an adaptive challenge for some teams. So I just wanted to give you those two guidelines for technical and adaptive, because all teams, all components, all groups, all have these components. Typically in leadership, most people always fix technical. Technical is always the go-to. Why? Because it's logical, it makes sense, and it's very predictive. However, when you're talking about something like trust, how do you build trust? That is always going to be an adaptive challenge for a leader. So what was happening in this group is that trust was low. They didn't trust one another. And so they wanted to focus on trust, but really what they needed to focus on was their behaviors. And so why would their behaviors be important? Well, because behaviors consistently allow people to trust or not trust you. It's one of those intrinsic feelings trust brings into us that allows us to really engage in that way. That is authentic and meaningful. And if we don't trust somebody, well then we're not going to do it. If we find somebody who is erratic or irrational or doesn't make decisions in a consistent manner that are aligned, even if they're not aligned with them, are they consistent with that person? And if any of those things are not happening, well then that's red flags. So behaviors really are important. So I'm not really going to go into those specific behaviors, but I wanted to line out what trust and how trust can be achieved with a team. And when people are focusing on trust, really it's not, I want you to trust me. It's like, what behaviors are happening with me? Now, how does this apply to adaptive challenges? Well, that's what I want to talk to you about next. What are the blocks that leaders that you may have that is keeping you from seeing the adaptive challenges in your team, in your family, within your organization? Adaptive challenges are always at the core. And if you can address an adaptive challenge in a consistent manner, then you will get sustainable change. You will not get sustainable change with technical fixes. As soon as that leader's gone, boop, a new leader comes in, everything changes. So when you do something that addresses the adaptive challenge, it changes the culture of that group, and it connects them in a way that's more meaningful. So here we go with the blocks that we might have for adaptive challenges. So some of the blocks that people have with adaptive challenge, the number one thing is ego. Do they have an inflated ego? So for example, a narcissist would have an inflated ego. What that does is it keeps them from being able to see things that are not going to make them feel like they're the most important. So it's good to have a healthy ego, but when your ego is inhibiting you from being able to do your job, that's problematic. So often leaders that I find do lots of technical approaches to things, like with engineers. Oftentimes, they are focused on being like the best. And when you're focused on being on the best, what you're missing is all those components, all those people that help an organization grow into being the best. So an inflated ego is something to consider. Now, you might want to ask yourself, when was the last time you asked yourself, is my ego driving these things, or am I connected to something bigger than me? So people who are connected usually check themselves. So if you have to ask the question, is my ego engaged? That might give you some of your answer. The other thing that I find with leaders, they often just meander. They don't really have a vision for themselves personally. Professionally, they might have, like, I want a promotion, but they're not really even having a vision for something bigger. And the not having a vision will block you from seeing adaptive challenges. So you want to be mindful of that. Another area is active listening, reflective listening. People who are not doing active listening and reflective listening, which is, essentially repeating back what you thought you heard and making sure that there's a synergy or an understanding. There might not be an agreement, but in active listening, you're looking for to gain some understanding. So that's really important. The other thing is, if you are just so busy, or you have to go to work, you got to go work out, you're going to go work things out, you got to go to a working lunch meeting. If you're working all the time, typically you're not taking time for personal reflection. Personal reflections will change the game. You must have time to be quiet, reflective, ask yourself questions like, is my ego involved in this situation? Am I not able to see things because of that? And that will help you be reflective. I know with some of my work, when I think I am like so in the zone, especially when I do work with the horses, like I am so in my element and I just love it. I always check to make sure my ego is not engaged, because once you got that engaged and you're working with a 1,500 pound animal, you can really have some problems. So it's really important to not have your ego engaged when you're with your employees either, because they don't like to be pushed around. So another block is a lack of a willingness to adjust your plans. So we all have a great plan, a great scheme of how we think this is going to happen, but are you willing to adjust? If you are inflexible, if you like things done your way, if you're a perfectionist, for example, that might be a good indicator that you're blocked from seeing adaptive challenges that need to be addressed. The other one is a little bit hard to describe, but essentially, a block with a leader with adaptive challenges would be if they don't have a connection to the essence of the organization. And that is different than the technical aspect, but the essence of the organization is like the purpose. What is the purpose of the organization? What is the purpose of this team? What is the purpose of our family? Like whatever group you're looking at, there's an essence to that. And if you are not connected to the essence of that, well, then that would be a block to seeing how to address adaptive challenges. And the other thing is simply just a lack of emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence, in simple terms, is just an ability to connect your head and your heart and work from both spaces. That's a simple emotional intelligence tip. As if you don't know how to do that, well, then that would show a real lacking and perhaps a lack of maturity to see things in a different way. So I hope you found this very helpful in you working with adaptive challenges both at work and in your personal life in a completely new way. Use this as a tip sheet in your reflection and to try doing things in a new way. I think you'll find it very helpful and very powerful. I know I have with every single team and group situation that I've been in when I employ these tactics of looking at the adaptive aspects and adaptive challenges in relationships and situations. You know, it really does change how we see things. And when we change how we see things, those things we see change.